The Burros of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burros of Berea.
Well, welcome back to the Burros of Berea. I'm Rick Welch, and to my left, I can't believe it. After 3 months, Billy Candy Kimsey.
Making ladies say goo-goo like a goo-goo supreme. Sorry.
Oh, that's been sorely missed.
What I have to say though, Billy, is that what about the dudes? You know, you're just like, oh, like for the ladies. Like, you don't think goo-goos are for dudes?
Not his goo-goos.
Yeah, not
his goo-goos are for women only.
Exactly. So I feel like that could be the candy for this podcast.
Yeah.
Because the slogan is, what a cluster.
That's so true. Oh, and I got a new nickname for Charlton. Are you ready?
Oh, jeez.
No.
Tiziana gave it to him.
Oh, that's true.
I heard it.
Charlton, Big Daddy. Big Daddy Carter.
Yeah.
Big Daddy. Behind the glass, Rocket Man Andy Bishop. And to my right, Sarita the Edge Edgerton.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We went to that Berean Bible Church
That was
conference, you know, full preterist conference for people that are not full preterists.
They let
And,
me in.
We have a special guest that I'm going to be announcing here in just a minute. Which
You're
I know
related?
some I mean some of the full preterists, you know, aren't going to be happy about the fact that I even have him on the show, but I've got to know him. I really like this guy. I do. I like him a lot. We'll see how we are after I don't know. He said that he's going to start a small land war on Facebook, so we'll see how that works.
Pew,
Yeah,
pew,
the-
pew,
And he's
pew,
got a lot
pew.
of followers that are with him that are like, yeah, bring it. You know, it's like
The mob and pitchforks are outside.
Meanwhile, I was like, I'm going to try to keep it civil here. I'm going to try to.
nah, we just love all y'all up in here. But so what did you think of the conference? Let's talk about that for just a second, then we'll introduce our guests.
Everybody was super nice.
Yeah.
Super kind. It was my first time actually being called a heretic, like to my face. I'd been called that on Facebook a couple times.
They called you that at the conference?
No, like from the pulpit. He called anybody who's not a full preterist borders on heresy, which is, I now see how y'all feel when people say that about y'all. So
I don't remember that.
yeah,
Somebody said that
it
behind
was
the pulpit?
Miss Mike Sullivan, I think.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Yeah, but that's
Well,
okay.
because it didn't pertain to you. It just flew right
What
over
did-
your head.
what
That's
did
because I'm not a
things tend to-
heretic there.
So
Yeah.
what did we learn about the word
Ah.
heresy? It's just meaning you believe something outside of whatever the norm
Whatever is
is. And
orthodox.
at that place, the norm was full preterism. And they knew I was preterist and not a preterist. And well, I don't know. I think I do believe some things happened in the past. So technically that makes me a little bit of a preterist. But everybody was nice. Everybody was kind. Can I say, though, that it, like being around you guys, it has made me go and read some more scripture. And I have sort of dug my heels in on my beliefs.
Yeah.
So, and even discussing it with my husband, preparing for our guest to be here,
Yeah.
we were watching some debates and reading some of his Facebook posts and trying to figure out, you know, where he was, listen to a couple podcasts that he was on. And we keep mysterious, but, you know, just trying to figure out, my husband and I are he's kind of coming to where I believe. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to hear different people the way they believe. And
Yeah.
they didn't try to induct me in and make me go through anything while I was at the conference. So it was good.
Yeah. What about you, Rick? Did you enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. You learn some things when you begin to hang around, get to hang around people you like.
Sure.
And I think some of the messages were pretty cool and pretty enlightening for me anyway.
My favorite part, now nothing against the speakers, but my favorite part was meeting our youngest
They
fan.
were so cute.
Oh, that was cool.
She texted me this week, by the way.
Did she?
How young is the youngest fan?
How old is she? Is she 12 or
There was a
14?
12 and a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And they actually sent me some
Wow.
questions for our
We
guests.
gave them lots of, they did?
They did.
They got a lot of free merch.
They did.
Yes, they
Pretty
did.
cool.
They did.
Well, let's bring our guest on.
Yep.
So, the author of Why I Left Full Preterism, is a book that actually he has given me, which I plan on reading tonight because I'm going to be meeting with him tomorrow all day. So I want to. I have 2 copies if anybody else wants to read it overnight to get prepared. No, I mean,
Just a short read.
Just light read.
whatever. Just
I know Rick will do it, though. I know he's not.
anyway, but welcome, Dr. Sam Frost.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Eat that mic, sir. Bring it all up in there.
Thank you for having me.
He's a man known for his subtlety. That's what we're seeing here today.
But I do have to say that you're not nearly as intimidating in person as you seem to be on social media. So it's when I saw you in the picture last night, I was like, oh, he looks like normal. Guy.
Believe it
He's
or
not
not,
so intimidating.
He really is.
but
Actually, he's a very
it
nice
must be
man.
what's up here that
I have a
It's-
scar on my finger.
did Rick slam it in the door?
No, this was years ago, and it was we grew up in a family of dogs. My sister was a great dog lover. So, Basset Hound, beautiful dog. Go up to it to pet, and
I just decided it was not a good
left
day
me a
for
scar.
a pet.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Drew blood and everything, hit the bone. So, don't let the looks fool you, I guess.
Yeah.
He was in, yeah, gotcha.
We went down to Lake Lure yesterday, and he got us Holly to take a picture of us by the lake there, and it really, really drove it home that I need to lose some weight.
Yeah.
No,
Because when
all
he-
the pictures that we took at the conference,
Yeah.
I was like, I got to lose some weight. So I'm down 5 pounds and 6 inches, and I am on my way.
Yeah,
so you can do it.
Camera
Let's do
adds
it.
about 30 pounds.
Yeah, was you
I
block?
wish.
Nice try.
Was you blocking the lake? Like you couldn't see the lake? Like move Rick so we can see the
Speaking
lake.
here,
Yeah. It was like, let's take a picture. They're like, who's that dude that's blocking the view?
I have
Yeah.
to say on that I have very, very high metabolism. So this morning I had 4 Pop-Tarts. I had 3 chocolate chip cookies, a Subway, and a chocolate milk. I'm not on any diet at all. So
How's your sugar?
I just burn it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For me, I have a,
I gained 10 pounds just listening to that. So
Yeah.
everything I just lost, I gained.
Pop-Tarts I got yesterday.
yeah, you did. And so my mom always like, clean your plate.
Oh,
And so as I got older, the plates just got bigger. And now, he watched, we had breakfast together. I cleaned that plate. We had dinner together. I cleaned that
clean the
plate.
plate.
And so,
His plate or your
Yeah.
plate or both? Like
And my
everybody.
plate.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
my plate.
and Bob Cruikshank said, yeah, I was like, I said, maybe I should try smaller plates. He said, you'll just get more than one plate.
Yeah.
Right. So Dr. Frost, I'm really interested. I'd like to hear your personal testimony. And I've asked you already, I prefaced on our drive over here that I'd like to know a lot about like your upbringing and how you, I know you love church and you love churches and church buildings and things like that. And I do too. And so take it away. Tell me where you're from and tell us your story.
No, that's not your first question.
That's very
That's
true.
I love it. Can you tell me
what
the
was
first
supposed
time?
to be his first question?
Well, it was so different. Can you tell me the first time you ever heard the name Jesus Christ? I think I know
Oh.
the answer. Yeah,
Newcastle, Indiana, Foursquare Gospel Church.
there it is.
Wow. Yeah. Very, very rarely does that get a straight answer.
How
Right.
old?
Oh no, yeah. I
How-
grew up Foursquare Gospel Church. It's still there, and I know many of the families that are still there that still know me.
How old
So,
were
and I'm
you?
56. So I'll be 56 May 30th. So 55. And the Bible stories, my mom still has my books that I would draw of the Gospels. So I'm, 4 or 5 years old, and I'm drawing out these whole things, and she still has all of that. So it just was, this man on the cross was very interesting. So in Indiana, growing up on Main Street, I couldn't have been 8 years old. So here's one thing you don't want to do in Indiana in the 70s. So this story so fascinated me that my stepfather was a construction, so we had wood, laying around the house and backyard and stuff. So I built a cross, a big giant cross, and nailed it together, and then put it up in the front yard, which you don't do in Indiana. You don't put a big giant cross up in the front yard. And
You didn't set it on
do
fire.
You don't do that down here either.
so my mom drove up and said, that can't, you be in the front yard of the house. Tacky. It just always, for Christmas, I think my I still have that. At 9 years old, I wanted one of the big giant family coffee table Bible, picture Bible, the big one that'll choke a mule, the big giant ones that they make, big family Bibles. So that's all I wanted. So it's just always grabbed me and fascinated me. I don't have a conversion experience story. It's just, this is what I believe. And so I stayed with it. We can get into that.
Sure.
Many valleys and highways and things like that.
Absolutely. So you grew up in the church. Now, were your family were just parishioners, or were any of them in the ministry?
No, they were just goers. There was divorce in my family, but I had a wonderful stepfather. May he rest in peace. He was just a wonderful person. If you're going to have a stepfather, he's the poster child for it. But he's Seventh-day Adventist, and so my mom's charismatic Pentecostal, and he's Seventh-day Adventist. Those two don't get along theologically. So I would listen to these two at the dinner table, go back and forth, and this, that, and the other. But they loved each other deeply, deeply so. So you can have differences and still love each other. That still worked. That's a real big thing in my theology today, and I think that's probably where some of it was seen as an example, that is possible. So growing up, there was a lot of that kind of debates. What does the Bible say? The Bible says this. No, you're wrong. It says this. That was very early in my childhood. To this day, it still goes on.
Yeah. So as you're growing up, did you, obviously you've been involved in the church. Were you involved in your church as a child? Like, did you volunteer, or were you a part of anything special at your church as a child?
No, not as a child. Unlike an Episcopal or Catholic church, there's no altar boys in a Pentecostal church. It's just mainly the pastor.
Right.
So, vacation Bible school and Sunday school and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly was in attendance for all of that. I remember all of them, all of my Sunday school teachers. So, and growing up in Newcastle, it's a relatively mid-sized small town. So there's a great Christian ethos that's there already. There's no public school problem because all the public school teachers are Christians. They all go to church, so everybody knows each other kind of thing. So it's very family oriented, very community oriented. I would say growing up in that time, today that's still intact largely. So it's very much a church kind of community.
Well, and you'd said earlier that you never really had a conversion, but you had just grown up in it. And so growing up, I imagine you were going to a Pentecostal church and not an Adventist church, right?
No, never went to an Adventist church, but he had a lot of Adventist books. He also had a book on Greek by Ray Summers because he went and did 2 years seminary at an Adventist college, or at an Adventist seminary. So he had these books by Ellen G. White and commentaries and all of this bunch of other stuff, and I was pulling those off the shelf, looking through them. Adventism is interesting.
Yeah.
Eschatology built.
Yep. Sure is.
I don't know how far you want to get into Adventism.
Well, I was just curious. I'm still
I never
in your
went
childhood.
that route.
Yeah.
I understand it, but I never went that route.
What is the for the peanut gallery? By which I mean me. What's the defining, like a quick defining feature of Adventism?
What features strict Sabbatarianism? They'll go to church on Saturdays.
Okay.
And then food and dietary laws. They're very strict on that as far as
kind of like the Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day
Yeah,
Adventist.
that's what he's talking about.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I associate it with that.
Yep.
Not
That's it.
Adventist.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
They have a big hospital in Orlando. And
They have a big hospital here.
Yep.
Oh, Ellen White, just history of the impact of feminine thought. She's one of the first leaders in health and making that very much aware. The industry of, you got to eat better. She was really a leader, a pioneer in that kind of work. I respect her for that. She was doing a lot of things women, this is mid-19th century stuff.
Right.
So she was pioneering in a lot of ways like that. Yep.
So you grew up in this Pentecostal church, and so I was going back it's when you were a child. So when you said it, when you were talking about conversion, the only reason it sticks in my head is because, like, in a Baptist church, conversion is a massive thing. Like, there is this
Yeah.
defining moment that they want the child to have, or an adult to have, this moment where they have an at the altar experience, or a salvation at your couch, or whatever. But when you were growing up, was that even prevalent? Like, did your pastor, was he concerned with that? Did he talk to
Oh,
you
no,
about
not
it?
to me personally, but they had altar calls every Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
I just
never,
never felt compelled to go because I already believed
yeah.
the way I looked at it. And then I was baptized at 8. I still have my certificate and all of that. I talk with my hands, so please forgive me. It's a motor nerve kind of thing. Yeah, but there was never any, not that I remember.
Right, of course. Now, and so while you're in, I'm talking with my hands too, just so you know, I always do.
Charismatic churches make it more a celebration.
Yeah.
Then
That's a good point.
It's interesting that
Yep.
from the standpoint of a Baptist church, it's more of a silent thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, raise your hand. Everybody bow your head, close your eyes.
I see that
and
hand.
I see that hand.
Yeah.
I see that hand.
And there was no
And-
hands.
and
When
you
I
have
was
no
a kid,
hands.
when I was a kid,
I
there was
always looked
no,
around.
there was no
Yeah,
bowing
where's
of the
the
head,
hands
raising
at?
of the hand when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you had to get out in the aisle and you had to go down to the altar. And that was a terrifying experience for a child. Like, I have to get in front of everybody, you know. And I know that they started doing the bowing of the head and raising the hand to stop that, but there was something, you know, about stepping out in the aisle that was like,
And then once you did it,
yeah.
because my conversion happened in a Pentecostal church as well.
Mhm.
And then once you did it, you went up front, and then you stand there, and
Yeah.
everybody gets up and comes up and hugs you.
And it says the
Yep.
yeah,
And it
absolutely.
makes it now from the standpoint looking at, to me, that was more impactful because everybody celebrated it with you.
Right. And it's not as, you know, at times, like, I would think mentally as a child, stepping out into an aisleway in front of all of these adults and peers, and you walk down, that is the experience that a lot of these children feel. And by the time they get to the altar, that has already happened. And so asking for salvation may or may not be something that is really happening at that moment. There's something completely else going on in the brain. I can't say that for everyone. I can say that for myself, because
There's
I
a lot
remember
of rededication and rededicate
lots of
your life and that
rededication
kind
in
of
the
stuff
in the
going on.
Baptist
Well,
church. Lots of rededication. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're saying you never went to the altar, so I'm kind of wondering if you
Yeah,
never
there was-
rededicated yourself
Yeah.
because they encouraged that so much.
I think I've rededicated my 78 times.
Yeah. Now, did
I
you?
don't know.
So by also being in Pentecostal, I imagine that there were people speaking in tongues.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
and then how about? Do you speak in tongues?
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that forgive me, is that a spirit driven thing, or was that a personal thing, or what do you know?
Well, we were having this conversation, so
That's
I don't
why I'm bringing it
know,
up on the podcast, because we
know,
can't.
as
Nobody
a-
knows what we talked about in the car, so we're going to re-talk about it.
now. I mean, I took my Greek in '91, so now I'm pretty proficient at it. So reading it now, it's languages.
Yeah.
It's hard to get around that they're speaking in
Yeah.
languages. Very, very
Yeah,
difficult.
so
You may perhaps the spirit language, angelic language. There's a open crack there for that possibility.
Sure.
So ecstatic speeches. I just looked at it as ecstatic, and my peers and those around me were doing it. You're caught up in the whole movement of it. These are good people, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
These are not
Oh, and I would never say
they're hardworking family.
Yeah.
Family good.
Love the
good
Lord,
people.
and they believe
Yeah.
what they believe, and absolutely.
And you get caught up in that, and that's what the Bible teaches. So you add that's what the Bible teaches.
When they're
Everyone
caught up in
around
their
you teaching that.
tradition.
Put
Yeah.
two and two together, you start
Good point.
hola, hola, shalala, you start going on with it, and it feels good, and music's great. The atmosphere is wonderful, and I'm filled with the Holy Ghost. Sure.
Yeah, I hadn't been to one of those services in a long time until recently. I went with Rick Carter to see Dr. Lynn Hiles speak,
Oh,
and there was a man that was there, and it was great music, and then this man started speaking in tongues, and
yep.
yeah.
I was like, not Dr. Hiles at the time, but whoever the other man was, and I just looked at it, and I was like, so this is it. Like, I've never been in a Pentecostal church like that before, and I was like, oh, all right, I mean,
My daughter went on a mission trip when she was 18 to New York City, and they were doing street missions. And she said, Mom, I'm so excited we're going to go to Brooklyn Tab, because we love Brooklyn Tab music. And
Yes.
so she said, so she calls, I said, well, you got to call me afterwards and tell me, was it the most amazing music? And she comes, and I said, was it good? And she's like, the music was good, Mom. And then about 5 people stood up and started running up and down the aisles and speaking in tongues, because we're Southern Baptists. You don't get up out of the aisle. You don't raise your hand. You don't pray. I mean, you don't do this when the music.
Like Presbyterians, yeah.
Yeah. And so she's like, it
The
was
chosen frozen. I've heard that.
Hey,
She said
That's
it was
good.
bizarre. And I said, well, could you understand anything that they were saying? And she said, no. And I said, was there anybody to interpret it for you? And she said, no. And I said, what do you think about that? And she goes, I'm just going to say it was interesting. And so she was very nice to not, denigrate their particular beliefs, but it was something that she couldn't back up. How she felt at 18 was biblically. And so, but she said the music was fantastic. She said it was everything you wanted the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir to be. It was that.
Yeah.
so she didn't end the story with, and then they brought the snakes out.
No. She didn't say that. No.
That would be about
That would be
45
about-
miles from here. Yeah. So,
That'd be in the
I
middle.
always wanted to see one of those.
well, we can take you if you'd like to go.
Oh, man,
I know
that would
some
be
people.
Awesome to see that.
There's actually not too far from here. There's a murder mystery about a pastor of a Pentecostal church that supposedly killed his wife by using these snakes.
Oh no, that's illegal.
Yeah. Well,
Rightly so.
Sure. But he used it as a way to kill his wife, and she just didn't have enough faith.
I thought of it because my wife's allergic to bees, and I thought, if I wanted to,
She got into some
my wife will
bees?
get this joke.
Oh, okay.
That would be how she got around the bees.
Right.
Yeah.
So
She loves honey.
She loves. I
Just lots of
just
honey.
in the short time that I've been with you, I know that you have a love for the Bible, for the scriptures. When did that start? When did that begin for you?
very early. Like I said, drawing these comic books and wanting the coffee table Bible and all of that. I still have some of the children's Bibles that I've got. Just kept them. Just very early. I always just believed it. I challenged it much. So, but just always was there. But I'm a skeptic, so I've had wonderful mentors in my life, 3 to date. That in academia, you always tell yourself in the back of your head you're wrong. So you're always challenging, falsifying, I guess, in the other language, but you're always challenging yourself. You're wrong. So I would read a whole lot more philosophy, skepticism, that kind of stuff than I do today. I read more of that than I do believers and things of that nature. So,
Sure. So you get from there. So as a child into your early adulthood, you're still reading the Bible, still
Yeah.
going to church. At what point did you decide that you wanted to be educated in this?
Well, that was we were in Orlando. My family was in Orlando, my mom and my stepfather. And they had moved, my mom and stepfather had moved to Gulf Breeze, Florida, up in the Panhandle. And there was a college there, a Bible college there. And they wanted me to go. So I'm graduating Kissimmee High School, Osceola High School there in Orlando. So they wanted me to come up there. And I had, at that point, now here's one of those valleys I was in. So at 16, 17, 18, my interest was weed and becoming a rock star and Budweiser.
Yeah.
Those were my 3 interests in life. So you go through these periods. And I was rather good at drums. And I was having a lot of people telling me that I was good at drums. And I really loved drums. I still play as much as I can today. So that was one of my things. So I was hanging with people that were going to go to Los Angeles. There's no plan B.
Right.
This is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a drummer. That's it.
Yeah.
So we'll live in a cardboard box and steal food, but we're going to make it. That changed when there was an automobile accident, and my mom directly said, "You're not living with your older brother anymore," who had the weed and the Budweiser and other things. Because of that background and being raised, so she, 18, you're coming up here to live with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going to this church back again, realizing, you know what? Yeah, I need to stop doing this, drinking and all that other stuff. So
That was rededication number 34.
yeah, that was number 34.
Right.
And so really went back to this church, and again, easily assimilate back into that kind of thinking. And they have a college there, dorm 4-year degree, Bachelor of Theology degree, and that never stopped. And I've told this before, so I'm not, making this is documented before. I guess I've told it before. Wasn't until my junior year that Dr. Dow Robinson came from Summer Institute of Linguistics, which is a very well-known outfit for those that are linguists, experts.
Mm-hmm.
And another guy, Dr. Frank Longino from Dallas Theological Seminary. So these two came and took me under their wings. It was under Robinson, though, that the bug really bit of theology and philosophy, and a light bulb went off, and I was hooked. I've been hooked ever since on just devouring as much material as I possibly can.
Right.
A book lover, too many books, thousands of books. My wife just not a really, I bring books. So here today.
Yeah.
What do I do on my off time?
I have to ship you like a box of books that he bought while he was
I found
here.
a bookstore and I found a box of books.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Frost, but I am shipping it.
Yeah.
My wife won't let me keep
So
it here
that's
either.
just, and
She is
reading
not going to
everything.
accept that delivery.
No, she will. So I have the whole downstairs. That's mine. Everything else is hers. The rest is mine. The downstairs is mine. So it's at the library. So that.
Is that the background we see when you're on YouTube? Is the books
Yes.
in the back? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
You only need the Bible, though.
Spoken like a true Baptist, right?
See, I read
agree
the
with
part
her.
of that Bible.
I agree with her, actually.
Before you get to the Genesis, before you get there's a lot of pages in between there. And those are the scholars and the
that
committees
helped
and the
us get
guys
our
that
Bible.
actually put that thing together. Without which you wouldn't have a Bible.
Yeah.
And then the monks.
True.
Let's not forget about the monks.
So let me ask you this question. So you've made the decision to go into school, and then while you're in there, then you get this idea like, oh, theology, philosophy, this is what I'm. So it wasn't the intent to become a pastor. It was just learning, or it was just getting an education at the beginning. And then,
Initially, I was there to stay out of trouble because my mom wanted me there, enrolled me in this Bible college where she was going to church at, and they had a campus Bible college.
oh, okay.
So, okay.
And it happened to be it sounds like Providence, honestly, but that in your life at this
Why,
moment.
looking back on it, it's definitely,
Yeah.
from my perception, it's Providence.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so let's say you get through your 4-year bachelor degree, and
Yep.
then you decide to continue on.
Won a scholarship to go get Greek at Cleveland, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
Church of God headquarters there. Did my Greek there, met Professor French Arrington, excelled at Greek. And
And you have a love for that language, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a wonderful language.
Yeah.
Far better than English.
Yeah.
But,
I think
yeah.
we all agree with that
Yes.
It's funny how nobody will defend English.
We're
Literally,
constantly
English is
saying we
good.
don't have the right word for the Greek word or the
only-
Hebrew word. We just can't. We need a better translation of this word.
We can explain
We
with
won.
English.
We
It's
won,
just we
and that's
can't-
why this language is here. We won. Okay, that's why the language. is
right.
here. We won. All right.
English is God's language.
Yeah.
Adam spoke English.
Yeah. Well, it's when we read it, there it is.
That's what he says. It's English.
That's what I read this morning when I read.
Right.
Yeah. So you're studying Greek in Tennessee.
Yep. And there, of course, the things of life and marriage and family and business, and they got to make money, and there's no money in theology. So I started a business. So
What, really?
There's
no money in there?
There's no money in it.
Well,
Dadgummit.
if you did some,
Ask Joel Osteen about
I was
that.
going to
Depends.
say. I know.
No,
I've
that's
heard of
not
this
theology.
that's
Joel.
not theology. Yeah, that's life coaching.
That's
Yeah,
that's
whatever.
life coaching.
Yep. So
Everyone gives him a hard time.
yeah,
Well,
It's just
kinda-
because he's so out there.
when you set yourself up a target, when you ask for a prayer and they said, well, if you send us $15, we'll pray for you.
yeah.
Yeah, any prosperity
Grew up around
gospel is
that
pretty sketchballs.
Yeah.
Just so you know, if you've ever listened to the Burroughs of Berea,
No, I grew up with that.
we don't
stuff.
care for
I
those
did
guys.
Prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
anti that.
I grew up. Mom was bringing home the day of cassette tapes. So I remember Jim Baker just starting.
He lived around here.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh yes, this
Right
area
here in
here is
Harrisonville.
very rich.
I actually lived 10 minutes from PTL in college.
Oh, wow.
And when it shut down, it went down, I was there, and it was a mess.
You could
Nobody
have
was
used the
doing
golden
that stuff.
toilets.
I could have used the goat, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Now here's
true.
here's the
It's
here's
true.
the thing to your
The students probably didn't get the golden toilets. You probably had to be faculty.
now here's your post millennialism. You know, this guy was doing it.
Uh-huh.
Jim Baker. I mean, you're building a Christian amusement park.
Mm-hmm.
That's That's
Yeah,
I've always
Heritage
bring
USA.
this kind of stuff up, but we need to take culture back. Well, we had it. That we've done this kind of stuff. It just is built for failure, though, because it's human.
Do you remember when Jerry Falwell went down the slide at Heritage USA?
I remember Jerry Falwell. I remember the start of Kenneth Copeland. We had all of his early stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I'm growing up. Kenneth Hagin,
Yep.
Oral Roberts,
Swaggart?
Jimmy Swaggart, definitely.
Lord.
Who's a wonderful.
Here we
Say what
go.
you want to
Here
about
we
him,
go.
but
Man,
man,
he can't play the
he
keys.
can play and sing.
So can his cousin.
He can move. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Very-
Do you know his cousin?
Jerry Lee.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Really?
It was his cousin.
Great
Yeah.
balls of fire.
That's right. Great piano players. And also liked prostitutes.
Yes.
And married their young cousins at the age of
Yes.
12. Yeah.
And your
that's true.
point is,
Hey,
ah,
hey, it's the American dream.
what's
That's
wrong with
rock and roll,
prostitutes and
baby.
young cousins?
Rock and roll, baby.
That's what we fought for.
All right. So you loved Greek and you went through this, through your scholarship. You got through this Greek and then.
Got through that. Working in not really doing anything in church other than going, continuing to read and this, that, and the other. So there's a good year's lull there until 1998. Bruce Waltke is going to be at Reformed Theological Seminary. He's one of the better Hebraists out there. Really knows, just very well respected on all sides, whether liberal, conservative, Jewish. As a Hebraist, he's very well respected. So I couldn't pass that up to get to be able to sit under him. So I enrolled into Reformed Theological Seminary and under Mark Futato, who was out of Dallas, did a year there and then did a year with Bruce Waltke,
Mhm.
who was on the committee with the New International Version and all of this. So he was, and that was wonderful. That was here's a disheveled old man scruffing along. He doesn't know anything about sports or doesn't drive a car, doesn't do anything, but he knows Sanskrit.
Yeah.
He could just start writing it on the. So
Yeah.
it's real Scott to be able to sit under that.
That's funny. That's presented as something at odds with itself, but no, that seems totally consistent to me. No cars, yes, Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems.
I'm thinking you could find that guy in downtown Asheville.
Yeah. So what's
Oh, yeah.
what's the drive behind you? So you couldn't wait to pass it up, but what's the drive? Are you trying to learn the original languages because you want to know the Bible better? Is that what's going on, or is it?
Well, the logic of it is, it's not English. Arrington pressed it in. Greek's not English. English is not Greek. So to get to in translation, you always want to know the root, the basis. Translations are wonderful, and it's certainly possible, depending on what philosopher you're listening to, whether, Foucault or somebody else, Derrida might have some issues with that, but you can't translate language, so we can interpret and translate. But it's not the actual source language. So you're going to miss a lot of nuances. You're going to miss a lot of way it's presented. So here's how it's put. Reading English is a black and white TV. Reading Greek is color.
Sure.
That's how it's put.
Mhm.
I think that's always been an adequate way of explaining it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still the same show. I can understand that I'm watching Andy Griffith show, but
Yeah.
actually the Andy Griffith shows, when they went to color, it wasn't good anymore. It's the black and white Andy Griffith shows.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to get off on my
It's
all
like
things
watching
trivia,
the
Andy Griffith.
beginning of Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
versus
Perfect.
watching the rest of
Great.
Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Or I Love Lucy was that same way.
I Love
It started
Lucy
They were
out
was
on the
color.
cusp. Yeah.
black and white and then color.
So that's the
To enrich your understanding
Sure.
of the word. Yeah.
and it certainly does.
Well, that's like some things. It takes away your imagination. Black and white, you're imagining things, and then when you get the color of it, it takes away that.
Yeah, I mean that's
That
why
fun
Alfred
stuff.
Hitchcock made the movie Psycho in black and white, because it's more terrifying, it's more simplistic, the way our brains work. And then, did you know that for blood that he used Hershey's chocolate syrup? And,
All right.
Yeah, true story. It's an old movie trick.
There's lots of things about black and white stuff, literally black and white stuff. There were if you see the colorized version, like if you can find photos of sets and stuff, nothing is the color you thought it was.
Right.
Nothing is the color you thought it was. It's crazy.
Yeah. I guess they had to do some outlandish colors to get certain
That's exactly
tones
right.
and tomes and all
That's
that.
exactly right.
Yeah.
It is not what you thought.
Yeah, it's like you would never put that in your living
Nope.
room. Never. All right, so you get through Reformed Theological Seminary. Well, this Hebraicist that you're with,
Bruce Walke.
Bruce Walke, yeah. So this isn't fully your PhD. You're still working towards the PhD.
Yeah,
correct?
I had met Dr. Talbot, Whitfield Theological Seminary, who was there in Lakeland, and that was through a correspondence with Roussos Rushdoony, so I was right. He wrote me back, hey, do you recommend a seminary? And he recommended Whitfield Theological Seminary in Lakeland. So I started taking some courses through there and got my master's I completed my master's through Whitfield. And it was at this time at RTS that I saw two books, Last Days According to Jesus by R.C. Sproul. Again, Mom and cassettes we've been listening to since the mid-'80s, Holiness of God, that he produced, and his name was sort of getting out there. And then C. Jonathan Soraya wrote a book called The End of All Things, Moscow Press, Doug Wilson's outfit in Idaho, Moscow, Idaho. And they were debunking the full preterist view, which I was from 92 to that time, 99. I just wasn't really out there doing anything.
So while you were in seminary, for your master's degree, you were a full preterist.
Didn't make
at
a
that
big
point?
bones about it.
Right.
Yeah. You don't go around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was your mom? Did your mom have an eschatology?
Yeah.
And your church? I mean, I guess that would be your church, whatever church. she
Oh,
went
every
to.
church we went to was we were going to Reformed churches, so it was Westminster Confession of Faith. Yeah. So you just don't. You might push back a little bit on it, but not too much. You'll get kicked out. Yeah. So you got to watch
That's
it.
a common theme we've heard in this room.
Yeah.
Understandably, if you're trying to join the Masons, you're not going to say, first we need to get rid of this Albert Pike fellow. Don't be a Mason.
Yeah, let's go somewhere
not
else. And that's interesting because was she still married to your stepfather at this time? He was your
Oh,
stepfather.
yes. Always.
And he had a very different eschatological view.
Adventist or
Yeah.
premillennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna burn. Are they the? No,
No.
that's Jehovah's Witness. Never mind.
No.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses are,
Everybody's gonna burn.
them and
Jo-
the very
actually,
That's a
exclusive.
whole different thing.
Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that people are going to burn forever. They believe in annihilationism.
That's true.
So it's
Yes.
just a quick burn up, for them. And then, wow. All right. So I guess we need to go back a little bit then in your story because that's going to have a lot to do
Because
with
I'm
what we're going
still
to talk about.
reading a lot. I'm
Yeah.
just in business.
So
So
where
And
does
family.
this happen? So while you're going to these schools, I'm sure you're attending the chapels of the school that you're going to. And so you're kind of going through all of the different, I guess, takes on the beliefs of these churches. Like the school holds to a specific creed or confession. Is that correct?
the Bible college was interdenominational. So we were reading, because we were working in the bookstore on campus. So we were reading, it was actually the children's director that gave me a book by David Chilton, Paradise Restored. And so in the bookstore, it was Tyler, Texas, Dominion Press, and we started ordering more books from them. So that's Gary DeMar, Gary North, Ray Sutton, James R. Jordan. That's all, Ken Gentry, very late 80s, early 90s, reading this stuff. So that's what you would call your preterism stuff. And David Chilton footnoted in his commentary on Revelation, a guy named Max King, who he says in his footnote believed that all prophecy was fulfilled. And boy, I'd like to read that. I'm the nerd that reads the footnotes and then gets the book on the footnote to make sure that it's lining up.
And then you find the footnotes in that book, and
Yeah.
it's a vicious
Yes,
cycle.
and it just
then you
goes
end up with
on
an entire
and on.
lower
Yeah.
floor of a house full of books. I think.
Yeah.
But that's how obsessed I get. So
So
Max
David
King's in
Chilton-
Ohio, and I thought, I
David
can get
Chilton.
that
This
book.
was in David Chilton's book, The Days of Vengeance.
Days
you
of
mean?
Vengeance.
And so he
That's
mentions
the first
Max
time I heard
King?
Max King's book. Yep.
He mentions Max King.
He footnotes it.
Really?
Yep. And so I
That's
knew Walt
interesting.
Hibbard, who was carrying that book in his Great Christian Books, the little catalog that he carried, and
What is
that's where I
this book
recognize
called?
that name.
The Days of Vengeance.
Oh, the Days of Vengeance.
Well, King's book is The Cross and the Parousia of Christ. 800-page, just massive work. Church of Christ, Warren, Ohio. Self-published book. You get it, and it's just this foreboding gray-looking hardback. You're not supposed to read this. Anton LaVey, Satan's Bible, Necromancer, Necronomicon kind of thing.
Like the never-ending story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So you kind of glossed over, and being the only female in the room, I'm going to take a little leisure here, but you're married, and
Yeah.
and you met her.
I
at
am now
semin-
currently. I've been divorced.
And when you met back then, you were married to a different person
Yes.
than you are. So, and you had children.
Yes.
How many?
I have 5 children.
Oh wow. Okay. By both wives?
Nope.
Okay. And so how did they do? Are they churchgoers? Are they
Yes.
believers? They grew up in the church.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What did they? Never mind. We'll ask that later. Go.
So
I
you
like
have
to hear the personal. There's a personal side to him, and I want to make sure we get not
Yes,
just the
I'm very much
intellectual
yes, very
side,
much.
but the
My
personal
son is
side.
up in Indianapolis right now. Works at the state capitol, a legislative assistant. So he's poli-sci degree, got his political science degree. Now he's wanting to go into law. My other son accepted at IU. He's finishing out at IU psychology. And my
A
daughter,
Hoosier?
and yeah,
He's a Hoosier.
got an IU, a Hoosier. My dad would be very proud. So
how was it?
yeah,
to
very
live-
family. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And so no grandchildren yet.
No, probably my oldest daughter, who lives outside of Durham, would be the only ticket there, maybe. So, because I've really preached having kids. Make sure you know what you're doing. Don't just squat these things out. you know.
Sound like Andy.
Yeah. Just make sure you know.
I'm pretty sure we don't squat them out.
Squat these
Just
things
I've
out.
had 4, so I know.
Good for you.
Yeah. That's not true. Tiziana squatted hers out.
Yeah,
Oh,
lots of
well.
people do.
And
Actually,
she was a beast,
That's
man. She was like, she said it was so metal. Remember? She's like, it was metal. That's what her husband
No,
said.
I was there for the birth, and your life changes seeing that, and I couldn't help but thinking, I'm glad that's not me.
Yeah. That was a terrifying
'Cause,
experience
wow.
for me.
I
Yeah.
lay there wishing it wasn't.
Man,
I wish this were you.
how is that possible?
I remember whenever my daughter was being born, and this is my first child, and so my wife looks at me and she was like, "Am I gonna die?" And they said she was going into transition, and I was like, "No, you're not gonna die. It's okay. Everybody goes through this." And then I turned and looked at the doctor, and I was like, "Is she gonna die?" I didn't know, because it is such a life-changing experience. Because I
Carol
was like,
Burnett said it's like taking your bottom lip and stretching it up over your head.
Yes.
so true, so true. So you read this book by Max King, I assume.
Yes.
You get, and it is
Call him up, because I called David Chilton up. So back then, it's just 911 or 411
Yeah.
information. And they answer. People answered the phone. So called him up and started talking with him, because this preterism and already being in this post-millennial Ken Gentry, Gary DeMar field, it did intrigue me as to how you can have Matthew 24 all fulfilled, but not 1 Corinthians 15 and 1 Thessalonians 4 and a whole bunch of Revelation. Why not just go the whole route? Well, Max King is the first guy that went the whole route. Everything was 80, 70. Everything is fulfilled. So that's your Mike Sullivan's.
And that was the cross
Don
and the
Preston's.
Paros.
Yeah.
What's the Perugia? Is
Yeah.
that what you call it?
And that's your Dave Curtis's,
Curtis.
where you guys went. That's Max King is the father of that. Whether they acknowledge that or not, Max King was doing this back in the 70s. So he's the first guy we see literally taking every passage in the New Testament and fitting it to 70 AD. So the preterists back in the 19th century weren't even doing that.
And so when you called him up and said, "Hey, I want to know about this," what happened next? Did you go
Very
talk
nice
to
man.
him?
The cult guys are always nice. No, he's nice. Max, may he rest in peace.
Did you need any Kool-Aid, by the way?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
What's in that water?
Yeah.
just started talking.
Now, if they bring it out, I'm leaving.
Trying to understand his approach. And again, that background dispensational in Pentecostalism is largely dispensational.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So growing up, we watched Late Great Planet Earth, on the screen. And so you're a kid watching this and you accept what your pastor says. He's the authority. That's a child's mind.
Sure.
That movie had a big impact, big impact. Orson Welles narrating it. How could you go wrong? Orson Welles.
Right.
That's funny. Until I came into this room, I'd never heard of that movie.
So see the movie. I recommend it. It's a great timepiece. It's a wonderful little piece there. It captures the apocalyptic and tanks and marching armies and disease and death and destruction and anger in the streets. The stuff we read today.
It's probably just a tiny
total
little bit
happy
better
ending.
than Left Behind. Maybe a little bit.
Well, that's not aiming very high.
He's like, good point.
I mean, as far as cheesy Christian movies go, it's
Why is it that Christians cannot make good movies?
They can. You should watch The Chosen.
You should
It's
watch
incredible.
Nefarious.
I did. I have.
I thought that was very well done. It wasn't cheesy at all.
I mean, The Passion, but I don't know Mel Gibson, but I consider him. He's Catholic. He's a big Christian.
Well, at least
But
the
it's-
content was Christian.
It's
That was probably one of the first best made movies, was A Passion of the Christ.
very well made
Yes.
movie.
Probably one of the first very well high budget.
They're
made.
making a sequel.
Yes.
They are. Passion of the Christ Resurrection.
He dies again.
That was a good movie voice, man. That was-
Can you give me this time it's personal?
This
Give me back my son.
in a small town. That'd be
In the
great.
city, you must fight to survive.
There was one carpenter.
Little tortilla boy.
You know it, huh?
We were watching it.
Oh, that's right.
the other
Pablo
weekend.
Francisco,
Yes.
the best. All right, so you've read Max
Sidetrack.
King, and you've reached, you've reached out to him, and you've
It made
spoken with
sense.
him. Yeah,
At that time in those young years, it made sense.
So this is you like coming into preterism? That's
Yeah.
where we are? Okay.
Yeah.
Full preterism.
Full preterism. The kind of the conference you went to.
Okay.
Yeah. Who I know all those guys.
Yeah.
I spoke with them, lectured with them.
I've seen you interact with them on
Yeah.
social
Oh, yeah.
media.
So I've known them since the early 2000s, all those guys. And at those conferences, so full speed ahead, Max King, Sariah's book, R.C. Sproul's book, who mentions Max King. So here's the big R.C. Sproul.
yeah.
Sells hundreds of thousands of copies of his books. Max King, nobody knows who this guy is, but Sproul's mentioning him, and Ed Stevens. So
Sproul mentions
that
Ed Stevens.
starts that opens up that just opened up all kinds of doors because everyone. It's like you hear. I think of my old references. So you hear Sweet Emotion on Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic, and you're like, man, this band's good. And you go back and you start buying their first albums that nobody bought.
Right.
So that's what happened there. Ed Stevens, Max King, reading R.C. Sproul, they're going to go back and start buying and looking for this Ed Stevens and Max King. So that opened up a real big door for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a manuscript because of Sariah's book on Sola Scriptura, and because that was the real big thing. How do you get around the creeds? How do you get around? So that was my manuscript. Well, Tim and Max King took that manuscript and they published it in 2001, Misplaced Hope. And that sold about 4,000 units. And the next thing I know, I'm invited to all of these conferences, like the one you went to. They were having 4 or 5 or 6 of them there from 2002 to around 2008. There was a wave going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then that began to implode. There were various directions and factions that were starting to go on. And this relatively small movement was already beginning to kind of fracture a bit. So, but anyway, that's how I got propelled into this. Totally was not planning on it. Completely was not seeing it. But
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just like, so when this intrigued you, where were you at in your personal life? Divorce, kids, getting married, work? I mean, what made you kind of, this is intriguing?
The full preterist stuff.
Yeah. Like what was going on in your personal life? Just like
I would say I was a nominal Christian. I wasn't really walking like I am, I would say, today. Certainly more friendlier with the elements of alcohol and things of that nature than a Baptist would allow. But
Which is
Presbyterians wouldn't.
Not this Baptist.
Yeah, but Presbyterians wouldn't. So, just kind of that thing, and certainly against any kind of Pentecostal spiritual gifts, that kind of intimate devotion with the Lord, that kind of walking.
Gotcha.
So more rationalistic, and full preterism just fit right in with that on that level.
So more intellectual Christianity versus a relationship Christianity. Yes?
Yeah.
You're studying, wanting to know a little bit more. This preterism sounds interesting, but not, like you said, doing a daily devotional,
Right.
really honing in on that relationship.
Wasn't a lot of
with
worship.
Jesus
Was there a
Christ.
worship service where you went at the conference?
They did worship
Yeah,
that
we did
morning.
worship.
You did? That's rare.
A couple of songs at the very first day, afternoon.
Very rare.
Yeah.
I didn't know but one of them.
Then Sunday morning.
And then Rick looked at me and goes, I didn't know you could sing.
I know she has
Right.
such a beautiful voice. She can sing. We'll have
I
to
knew
sing
that
up in
song.
here.
No.
Andy can record us. We can sing it. We can.
So that was my life now, as it was then, is definitely different. Yeah.
Yeah. So once you start getting invited to conferences, do you start writing books like from the things that you've learned? Obviously there's no real place to get educated for this, right?
I was the only one with a degree in the camp that was now opposing us. So RTS, Reformed Theological Seminary, they got together with Ken Gentry and Keith Matheson and Charles Hill, Simon Kistemacher, and they put together a book. Presbyterian and Reformed Publishing put together a book, When Shall These Things Be? So we were starting to be attacked because we were growing, I guess, a little bit. So, and I mentioned in all of these things because I'm degreed. I'm at their seminaries. And I'm the only one in that kind of thing doing that work. So yeah, I'm writing and trying to defend as much as I can the full preterist view.
Is it because you truly believed it?
I truly believed it. Yeah.
And
I
did
thought
you
this
want-
made the most sense. It
And you wanted to you were defending it because you just believed it that much.
started a church, sold the business, moved the family from Orlando to Tampa, started the church, full preterist, one of 8 full preterist churches out there.
So now you're pastoring?
So now we're pastoring. And it was at that moment. So we hosted Don Preston debating James Jordan, and Don Preston debating Mark Hitchcock and Thomas Ice. So we were getting some
I
big
didn't
names.
know that Preston debated with Hitchcock.
Yep.
This is
And he
before
did it at
everything
your
was on
church?
video.
At our church. Yeah. We
Was it
hosted
awesome?
Oh, yeah. I got to take Mark and Thomas Ice out for at the Olive Garden.
I
Get to
love
pick their
watching Mark
brains.
Hitchcock in his debates. I
Yeah.
watched him with Hank Hanegraaff, and I was like,
Oh,
this
he's
guy-
quite impressive.
Oh, wow. Now, I really enjoyed Hank Hanegraaff because he could recite the entire book of Revelation.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. He was like, here, let's say this. And he recited chapter 1 of Revelation
Was it-
by heart.
Was he Jack Van Impe style?
No, it was beautiful. Not Jack Van Impe style. It was beautiful the way that he did it. And I thought, man, that's amazing. But in the debate, it was meaningless. Hitchcock tied him up into a little tiny knot in that debate. I got to admit, I respect Mark Hitchcock for what he can do in debating.
Sure.
He's really a great debater.
So,
And you got to see him live with Don Preston.
We're there, and Don was debating.
Can
So
I
that's
ask
where
who won?
we were at.
Do you know who won? Does anybody ever win a debate? But who won?
Depends.
We don't win one in here.
Yeah, none of us.
Depends.
It depends on what side of the because I go and look at some of your debates
It's not
that
even
are
about
on
winning,
YouTube.
is it?
And the comments, it depends on who's commenting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who won?
frequently, yeah. You think the person who you agree with won frequently, yeah.
Frequently.
I guess the debate is really more for edification, for learning, and for hearing you're hearing two different
it's
sides. and
educational.
It
Debates
should
are
be,
educational.
not poo-flinging like some of these. Like the last guy that debated Don Preston, Mark Smith on Myth Vision was pathetic. He might have been a great debater. It wasn't that. It's how he went after him as a person, as a human being.
Yeah.
I was disgusted by that. And I would never do a debate on Myth Vision. If he's going to allow that kind of stuff to happen, there's no way.
Yeah.
No way.
You ever seen the Lincoln Douglas debates?
Well, that's different.
I've seen them. Read
Yeah.
them.
Are you're talking about for the presidency of the United States right as the time the
They're
whole
going at
nation
it.
is splitting apart? Yeah, but did Lincoln call Douglas's mother a whore or something? Maybe.
No,
Maybe
but there
Think
was an
about that.
instance where
'Cause they were
was it
pretty-
Were they
Sumner
pretty
got
nasty?
beat
They
up
could-
in the well of the
yeah.
Senate
Yeah.
by I think it was a South Carolina
They didn't
senator
mess
beat the
around.
tar out
With
of
a
him
cane.
with a cane.
Well, see,
But-
that type of debate, you definitely want to have a winner. You want to have
For
a
duel.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's always
Hamilton.
Burr and
And
Hamilton.
Burr
Yeah,
and Hamilton.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's a real debate, huh? Yeah,
Yes.
that's the way to do
That's
it.
the one you want to win.
That's what my wife always told me. She's like, if we ever get divorced, we're going to duel. It just so happens I don't own a gun, but she does.
You lost.
The end. Yeah.
What business did you sell? What
It
were
was
you doing?
janitorial commercial cleaning. So we
Okay.
were doing high rise commercial cleaning 5 nights a week.
Speaking of
stuff.
poof
Very
flinging.
lucrative. Yep.
Yeah. So you're at this church. You have hosted these debates, which I'm so jealous that you got to see that
Yeah.
debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been there. in
And a
person.
young Jeff Durbin was there.
Really,
One of these
Wow.
debates. I found out later.
really. How old
Yeah,
is he?
he
Like 12.
contact- Yeah. No. He was in his 20s.
Yeah.
That
You guys knew Jeff Durbin?
Sadly, he still kind of.
I've heard the name.
Yeah,
He does.
he's a very, very like I don't know.
Very-
I model myself after him.
Apologia, the
Except I'm
homeschool
like 5
curriculum?
times his size.
apology.
The homeschool curriculum?
Well, your beer's not as long.
No.
either.
No.
Apologia does a homeschool curriculum.
It might be them. Him
Is
and
it
James
a church,
White.
Apologia?
Yeah, they're out in
Yeah.
Arizona.
Okay.
Jeff Durbin, when you watch his Apologia like on YouTube,
Yeah.
this guy like goes out on the street. I mean,
Yes.
he's going
Oh,
everywhere.
I love
He's
what-
fighting against everything and trying really hard. He works really hard at it.
I love his discussions he has with the Mormons,
Yeah.
and just kind of ties them up in knots.
Yeah. It's really wild. He's pretty cool. So he came to your church too and you just didn't know it.
At the time, didn't know.
Wow.
He contacted and he said, I was at that debate.
Wow.
So anyway, having these debates, but it's in this that we're being attacked as being a church because, and the attack is coming not from the evangelicals that we're opposing, it's coming from the full preterists that we are, because why have church today? See, that started to come up.
Yeah.
Why do you have pastors today? We're in the new heavens and the new earth. We're in the perfection of the one new man. We are in the covenant perfection of God. We're fully sanctified, perfected. God says that we're perfect. It has nothing to do with biological perfection. Everything has to do with covenantal perfection.
So these
So
are the
why do you
arguments
need
they're
to have
throwing at
church?
you. They're throwing this at you while you're a pastor of a church.
My own people
Oh, okay.
are throwing this at me, criticizing us for having a church and a statement of faith and all the rest of it. So we're trying to mirror the evangelical churches as in saying that you can be a full preterist and function as an evangelical church.
Mhm.
And I found out among many full preterists that you can't, you shouldn't, you're not supposed to. And there's around today, these guys, Israel only,
Yep.
little group that started, we watched them slowly start, and we opposed them. But now I look at it and think, you got a point. You really do have a point. I mean, why do I need to go to church? I am the church. So why would I have to go to church? And maybe the whole ecclesiastical structure, hierarchy, and all of this robes and
It's all futile.
build an orphanage or something.
Well, I mean,
do something better with that property.
Even Paul, so Paul's part of the church and he tells them not to forsake the gathering of themselves together. I mean,
Yeah, but that was for them. That was not written to us.
well, but he was still talking about the church.
Not exactly. I don't
Not
think.
really.
I don't think it was. It never was in what our concept of church is.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not in that concept.
Okay.
It's about like what we're doing right now.
So you were
Right.
so they were criticizing
Yeah.
you or your
Not like
kind
the
of preterism
not the setting of a
for-
church. Like, yeah.
because you were trying to do preterism in the model of the current modern day American church.
Because I love church, and I saw full preterism as bridging a gap, and so I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
We're not gonna get anywhere doing
There was a
that.
model that worked, so why not
Right.
use it so we can all meet together and teach our beliefs
Right.
so that's where you kind of go, your love for people and the church as a people group, not necessarily as a building, but maybe you did love the building too. But as a people group, I see where you're going with why you did it, but you were getting probably you were getting hammered from both
and
sides.
Elders, and there should be this organization known as the church, and deacons and people that pool their money together and then reach out to the community and help the lost and the poor and those in jail and all that kind of good social stuff.
I mean, we should still have educational
and
foundation.
Yep.
And I mean, I feel that that's where church should be, is the edification and building up of the saints and teaching. I mean, that should still be the premise of what it should be for.
And that point in Ephesians 4, so it's that point under the edification until we all reach the fullness of the stature of the one new man. That's 70 AD.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not in that anymore. So why still do it?
So we're rearranging
That's the
deck
point.
chairs on
how are you responding to
perfect ship. We shouldn't.
Like,
we're not. I'm like, well, we're obviously.
No. I'm
there
saying
yet.
then, while you were there and you were hearing those things, how did you respond?
I was trying everything I could, Jason Bradfield and a few, to write these technical papers of defending the necessity of the continuity of the church post 70 AD, because I was always raising up these issues that, the futurists have to deal with 2,000 years and at hand and all this, but we have to deal with 2,000 years too. What has God been doing? Why are we still here? What's the purpose? What's the point? And that so what question, or post 70 AD question, that's where a lot of preterists just begin to really fall apart.
When we get into
they go all over the place.
When we get into one of our later talks, I want to dig in a little deeper with
that's
you.
That's
on
the big question right there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna dig in deep on that one.
That'll be good.
All right, so we are.
Yeah.
You're getting pushback probably from both sides. You're preterists,
All
so they're
sides.
pushing all sides.
But you don't have your doctorate yet, or you do?
No, that's much later after I left.
So when do you
after I left
feel like
okay?
So what prompts you to leave? There's a good segue. What prompts you to leave?
Well, buy my book for $15.95.
Yeah, there is a book
That's
here.
right,
Hold on.
yeah.
Let me pull this.
And
up.
you can have a picture of me and my family as you
So when
and
you
a special anointing this
so
time
when you
only.
left the church,
Yeah, look at here. Why I left full preterism.
so when you left the
There's
church,
an
you left
anointing
full
on that book.
preterism at the same time. I'm trying to.
I do have a napkin. I need you to
That's
kiss
my old
before I
coming
leave.
up.
Yeah.
And if you buy it right now, you'll get a special anointing with it.
Hallelujah!
Yeah.
I feel it through the.
Prosperity.
Put your hand on the
Dig
TV
deep.
now.
That book
I'll
actually.
pray with you.
Whoever
does
made
feel
this
good,
book, it's
yeah.
actually got a really nice feel on the exterior here. I
Kenneth
do. I like it.
Gentry's outfit publishes that. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Very cool.
Was it Good Hope? Good Hope Publishing, is that his?
I don't know. I see that Gary DeMar, Ken Gentry, and Keith Matheson all have written something about your book here.
I think your little blurbs on there.
Little blurbs.
They might write something different today.
Tell me
No,
where it's
they
published.
wouldn't. That's why I left. Now, but it's interesting. It's ironic Gary DeMar's on the back of that. So,
Yeah.
because where he's at right now is nowhere near what that book was saying.
Yeah.
So let me
Thanks,
go back-
Billy.
So let me go back to my question. When you
eye
left
candy.
this,
On a podcast. It makes no sense.
Eye candy on a podcast. Technically speaking, I'm eye candy on a podcast.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Make me 3. Oh, yeah.
Call you a whopper. But anyway,
Rick's
go
got
ahead.
a face for radio. Sorry, that's an old joke.
Yes. And that's only true
it's
about
always
Ralph Hicks.
funny.
It is funny. Anyway, so you.
It's like a ventriloquist act on radio.
Yeah.
Can see his lips.
Yeah. Trust me.
But the bad thing is he's still got the dummy there.
So where were you at? What were you going to ask, Sarita?
So when you left this church in Tampa, that's where you were, right?
Well, did you leave or did
Well,
you
the
get
church,
fired?
I resigned from the church because it started dwindling.
So is that because of this?
No. Well,
This
that was
meaning the
before
book.
I
I'm
resigned.
sorry,
Yeah,
the
I
book.
left
I'm
the
sorry.
church. We resigned the church before that. That came as a personal angst struggle. Continuing studies, working with the dean of the seminary, Dr. Kenneth Talbot, and
And we'll put a link.
W. Gary
We'll put a link
Crampton, so.
in this testimony. We'll put a link, guys, to be able to find. I imagine they can buy this book on Amazon.
Oh yeah, you can
Yeah,
get
I'll put a
Google
link
it,
so
it'll
if
come
anybody
up
wants to
Dude,
see
that's
the book.
down the street from my house,
Talking about-
Chesney.
Oh, he's Dr. Gentry's just 45
Yeah, he's like
minutes
in
away.
Greenville, I think.
But he was away. He would have
won't-
been here, but he was away.
He
He's
would have
got
been
some
here, he said?
engagements. Yep.
So if I ever want to get
He
Ken
wants to
Gentry on
meet
the
me.
show,
Next time I'll be here, I can meet him.
I just need to make sure I bring you down and then he'll come because I've invited him
That'd be
several
great.
times. Nice. He
He's
just
very
won't come.
busy.
So am I.
Yeah.
I'm very busy.
I am.
am
Don't you hate
too.
when people say that? I'm
Yeah, it's
very
like,
busy.
I'm so
am I.
busy. Okay.
Am I not?
We're all busy, you
Just
know.
don't have
I'm busy
time.
right now. Right now, you just don't know how busy I am.
Well, my favorite is what I've asked Kim Burgess so many times.
Have kids.
Listen, I love Kim Burgess.
why?
I just love Kim Burgess. I just do. And when
Yeah.
I talk, I try to reach out. I'm like, please come and give your testimony. He's like, no. And I'm like, why? And he's like, not a chance. I'm not that interesting, and I don't really want to do. Yeah, okay, all right. I really wish you. Some of these men that have
least
affected
he's
our
direct.
society, I wish.
Yeah, at least
he's
instead of saying I'm a gonna,
Yeah.
I would rather you
Well,
just say no.
let me be fair to Ken Gentry. He has been kind and responded and said, I appreciate that you have invited me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to finish this commentary that I've been working on for 70,000 years. But hey, it'll be done soon.
And keep in mind, people don't.
Do you
Not
get the word
everyone's a
soon?
media.
It'll be
prostitute
soon. It'll
like
be
me.
done soon.
When
Yeah.
Jesus comes back.
Yeah.
At the front and the back.
Well, when we were doing our
Was that
first
an
studies in
80-70?
here,
Yeah.
when we did our first studies in here, we were talking about Jesus coming back, and Billy was like, Jesus is going to come back before he finishes his study.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, that's. But my thing that came out of a person just continuing studies came out, and I saw it. I had a problem. Again, this gets back to the way I was trained. It's always look for a problem in your own view.
Sure.
You know, the good academician will always do that. Whether you're in science, they're always looking to falsify their own view, and that's just how it works. So you do that also in scholarship. You're always looking for holes, and I found one, and it became a very big one. And
Would
so,
you care to share that with us?
right now,
Well, I mean, if you
we can
want.
get into the nature of infinity.
Well,
That's a whole other.
yeah, we can do that on the other podcast because we've talked about that. Everybody has a problem
It's
with
in the
infinity.
books.
Infinity is a problem. It is a problem
Yeah.
for pretty much every, including mathematics. It's a
Oh, yeah.
problem, you know.
It's fun to read about, though.
Yeah. So
But it's been a problem. The Greeks hated it. It's just been this. Always been, and so keep in mind, I'm reading a lot of philosophy and history, and it's going
Including Buzz Lightyear?
no.
to infinity and beyond. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So what about so tell us about where you are right now. I mean, obviously you're in the studio, but where from leaving full preterism, it took you into a journey. It sounds like that was very hard on you,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Well, your whole reputation and career, and going to conferences, and
Well, we didn't even
becoming
talk
a
about him
speaker,
leaving
so-
dispensationalism as a
Like a moment in his life, like a
A turning point?
well, I meant you're coming out of
that was in
dispensa-
college.
Yeah,
you
you're
know.
going through dispensational. He's going through the learning process. We didn't even talk about him dealing with that. I mean, he did talk about a little bit of him. He wasn't walking the walk because, I mean, in some
Yeah,
cases,
there were valleys, and
how can you walk the walk when your mind is kind of mush,
Yeah.
trying to parse it all out and segment it? Because we're used to, as Kim Burgess would say, you're trying to dissect it all the time
yeah.
and put it in pieces. So we didn't even get to the, how are you handling walking out of what you grew up in?
from dispensationalism
Yes.
to a preterism.
Yes.
Really, it just kind of made sense.
Well, no, I mean, were you attacked? How did you deal with it with your friends?
On the
your-
Bible college by some, but it was an interdenominational, so there were some there that were supportive of it. So you're
about
in a
your
college,
mama?
you're supposed to be taking shots, and
I think
a lot of differences are there.
it sounds like preterism is a thing that happened to you over a course of time, and going back to
Dispensary.
dispensationalism is a choice you made. And so the social
Yeah, yeah.
repercussions of the second one are significantly greater than the first, because in the first one, you're actually finding the group as you're changing your beliefs. In the second, you change your beliefs, and then you find out that group that you thought were your friends, all of a sudden you're not accepted anymore. So it's a much more difficult transition.
Well, the dispensationalists at college treated me better than the full preterists treat me today. So I've been called every name in the book, and I'm a God hater. I've turned my back on Jesus. I'm
People get tied
I
up in
am
the
the
thing.
enemy.
People get tied up in a thing and they take their beliefs as their personality, and then their attacks on their
Yeah,
beliefs,
unfortunately.
they transmute to attacks on their personality. And you're just like, that's not what I meant.
And you said you were hearing from people already.
Uh-huh.
Why having me on the show?
Yeah, I mean, for various reasons, but that, of course, that doesn't bother me. I mean, people can think and do whatever they want. That's not me. I mean, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. That's what we've always done on the show. So, I guess the part when I found out about you, and the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, of course, was through Jason Bradfield.
Yep.
Because Jason Bradfield was just like leveling these like harsh criticisms towards
awesome.
people that I know.
I love Jason. If he's listening, I love Jason Bradfield. Great.
Well, I asked him if he would
Fellow
accept my
warrior.
friendship,
Yeah.
and he did. He didn't call me a clown, but he told me to kick rocks.
He's called me a
that's the
clown, so don't
dude.
feel
Is
bad. I've
he,
been called a clown by Jason.
Preterist?
No.
Used to be. He was
Used
very
to be.
formative with me, what we were doing in St. Petersburg. Yep.
Well, just
And
what
then he
happened.
came out of it. So.
He attacked Don Preston, and we've talked about this before, and this isn't my testimony. This isn't our testimony. It's just how I found you and how this all worked out is that the Burrows entered into this world because of things that I found and studied and what I began to believe and was sharing with the group. And, I just had to tell, Pastor Curtis and McCormick and all those guys, thank you for giving all of these things away. And I come from a world where you buy everything and you have to, like you said, for $15, I'll send this to you, right? These men work tirelessly and just give it away. And that speaks volumes.
That's because
to somebody
nobody's buying it.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. That was a low blow. But I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, there's plenty of preterist books out there that people could buy, but that meant a lot to me. And I wanted to thank them because they'd opened my eyes on some things. You got to understand, I am hardcore dispensationalist is what I was.
Right.
And I started seeing some things, regardless if we agree on what the time texts are or anything, those were eye-opening for me as a human being. And to the best of my knowledge, I have just as much of the Holy Spirit inside me as you do, and as the rest of the world do that believe and put trust in him. And so I'm thinking, how is this possible that all of us have the same spirit, yet we're on such different planes and paths? And so when I go and I think and I meet them and I love them dearly, and I go online and I meet Don Preston, and I think he's the funniest man, and had him here in the studio and at the shop, much like you, and then I see Jason Bradfield calling Don Preston a clown, and I was like, it just bothered me, and I was like, who in the world would say that about somebody that spent
again.
But again, we walked into the middle of a war, and that's what he responded. The Burrows walked into the middle of a 30-year war, and we don't know where it started or why, but it was there. Had no idea. But I was just saying, you all need to be put in timeout. Like, I'm done, right? I'm done. Like, come on, guys, let's try to be nice about this. But it's not going to be. It's just not going to be. And so I'm resolved to that. That is not who I am. I am too much of a soft heart. And so if somebody says, hey, you don't need Sam Frost, I'm like, you know what? He's a human being and he loves the Lord Jesus, and I want to meet this guy. Oh, I don't know if he loves the Lord Jesus. Well, I don't know what you know, but I don't care what you know. I want to meet him myself, So let's just see how this works out.
Yeah.
I told Michael Miano, I was like, I hope they don't put me in this camp against them. I'm trying to reach out to them, but if they do, then so be it. I'm offering an olive branch to everyone that I meet because as far as I know, Dr. Frost, Jesus Christ told the people at the Sermon on the Mount to love their enemies.
Yep.
That is not a fake it till you make it. And I don't know how to do that. And I have been spending my life talking to him, trying to learn how. That's where I'm at in my life. And I don't see you as my enemy. I mean, we don't even know each other. We're starting to get to know each other. And I hope your wife and all y'all will come down,
Sure.
and if you do, then maybe Gentry will come out of his hole and come up here, and that'd be fun, have a little hot
I see
dog.
a lot of people not loving their neighbor like themselves.
Well, they love themselves.
Well,
That's for sure.
yeah.
That's not, I don't want to say that's true, but
To be fair, I know a lot of people that absolutely do not love themselves.
Yeah, that's true. And but I have some great friends. All of these people that have been so kind to me, and I love them dearly, and I'm not going to change my mind about that for any reason ever. I don't care what anybody says, that's just how it's going to be. And that will include you as well. That's just how it's going to be for me.
For me, it's a historian. So you have these the church is already defined in these creedal bounds that has people have lost their lives over forming, and the messy history of church history. And so that's the definition of what church is. And we're all in agreement from all four quarters of the earth, all languages, all nations have come to an agreement on these points, in spite of our several very sharp schismatic disagreements that we have within the church.
Mm-hmm.
We all agree on these points, all languages, all walks of life. So when someone comes along and says that's all wrong, we're not to just say, "Oh, come on in, yeah, we're right."
I don't know if
there's a
are they
concern.
saying that's all wrong? I don't think
absolutely.
I don't think they're saying
I
that's
said
all
that.
wrong.
I preached that. Yes.
But I don't know that would have been the right way to go. I mean, I don't think they're saying that's all wrong. I think that they're saying there are some things about post-millennial and amillennial and all that, and how these things join. At least you saw it at one point. I've told you many times, and I told you tonight on the way over here, thinking that the church has been wrong for 2,000 years is not a stance that I want to take. I don't want to take that, guys. I'm not going to stand up and say the church is. Who am I to say that?
That's what we're saying.
I understand
so
that's what you're saying.
Michael
but
Sullivan standing up and calling me, an Orthodox Christian, a heretic because I don't believe in his view. That's
I mean,
so
I can't say that for Mike Sullivan. He's not here to defend
preaching
himself. I can't say that about that. What I'm saying is I don't remember that, and I know Sarita said I guess she heard it. Maybe we can go back and was it on the recording? I don't know. But
I haven't gone back and watched it.
Mike's not here to defend himself, and he can defend himself just fine.
He might have said it's heretical views. He didn't call me a heretic.
Oh, okay.
Heretical views.
Yeah, but and I, contrary to popular belief, I love Mike. I do sincerely, and his wife Denise both. So, I think that I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want us to get deeper into this.
This is where the land wars began.
We're not going to have a land war. It's only a spiritual war.
I mean, some of it is just being in it for so long, and then coming out, facing the opposition from them that I've faced because of, this was a big thing. I had published a book with Sullivan and Green and others. And right at that time, 2009, 2010, Don just published my book, and I'm having this study where I'm starting to come out. So there was a lot of animosity as a traitor.
Yeah.
But you have to follow your conscience. You can't go against your conscience. If you're seeing a problem with something, you can't.
To me, and that's
too many people sweep it under the rug and they still sell something that they know is false.
I said this to you last
Dr.
night in the
Fauci
car after you and I had dinner. Yeah.
Dr. Fauci, ring a bell?
Yeah, of course.
He knows it's wrong, but he's telling you it's right.
Whenever,
I can't do that.
And I'll say this publicly, because I told you this in private, I'll say it publicly. I commend you, I do, on whatever you've truly believed, that you've made that decision no matter what happened in your life. You've done that. And I do commend you on that, regardless of what anybody might say to me. I don't care, because I know what it's like for me. When I started making the decision, I started seeing these differences too. And I was like, guys, if you just knew what I'm seeing and what I understand, what I believe, and how my heart just exploded, and I started loving people and seeing things differently, all because I started understanding like things that I'd never read before. It was just opening up. It was just such a wonderful thing. I don't know if you felt that when you became a preterist, but it's like suddenly the world, for me, it wasn't so terrifying anymore. It is a terrifying place because depravity is never left. It's still right here. But regardless of any of this, I'm seeing these particular things. I believe it with my whole heart. And I still worship. I worship with premillennial dispensationalists every single Sunday. Yep. And I will continue to worship. And I can worship anywhere that I am. And I do, because he's worthy of my worship. And I know what he did for me. And so if people could look at me and they say, look, you're a heretic, and I think that you're lost, and I think you're dying, and I think you're going to hell because of that. The thing that hurts me is that I think everyone should be careful, because I have the Holy Spirit in me, and I know he's here, because he's changed me from the inside out. I've never had a love like this, Dr. Frost, never. It's come from him, and it's changed my life forever. And will I always be a full preterist? I don't know. How can I say I know? Right. If you'd asked me 10 years ago if I was always going to be a dispensationalist, I would be like, of course. But after this big change that I just went through,
right,
I don't have to prove to anyone that I am a perfect full preterist forever. I don't care.
Right.
That doesn't matter to me. That's just a name. That's a moniker. That's a title. The only title I'm concerned with is the King of my salvation, Jesus Christ. That's the title I'm concerned with. And this is where I'm at in my path right now. And I believe it with my whole heart. And it's because of texts that I see, and I'm going to continue to study, and I'm going to continue to search. And Lord Jesus, help me. That's where I'm at.
That's all we can ask.
I know, and
keep
that's
reading, keep studying.
Yeah, and that's what upsets me about the people that look at our camp and they're like,
And the opposition.
Yeah. And so that's why I refuse. Like, I'm going to love the other groups regardless. And I wish that they wouldn't look at me and say that I'm a heretic. I wish they would say, I see where you're going and continue on your path, but they won't call me a brother. They won't. And that's unfortunate because I know who my Savior is. I just know. And what can I do with that?
Could I say the same about the Mormon? I've had this
Hold on.
conversations with Mormons.
Would you?
No.
You wouldn't say that.
Well, from one perspective, I don't know. I'm not God. From a historic definitional perspective, I'm compelled to say no.
You know what? I don't think that
you can't be an atheist and on the back of your head, I believe a little bit in God.
Looking at Jesus Christ as everything that he said was fulfilled, looking at that, saying, I believe that what Jesus said, he meant and he fulfilled it, is very different than me saying that I'm a God. Are there Jehovah's Witnesses that believe Jesus is the Christ and they have a differing view on annihilationism? They don't believe that they're part of the 144,000. They're part of the great crowd. Are there some within that camp that can be believers? Yes. Go ahead and call me a heretic. There are true, sincere people that want salvation and they know it comes from Jesus. They just have been either raised or they're a part of a group and they haven't been able to break from the groupthink. Is that fair?
That's
Calvinism. And Southern Baptists might look at Roman Catholicism and say, no, they can't be saved. They pray to Mary. But that's just an ignorant way of looking at things. There's so many people within that faith that are honestly seeking after the Lord Jesus Christ.
I hope, yeah.
So I can't speak for Mormons because I don't know enough about Mormonism, but I know that if somebody is truly seeking after the Lord Jesus Christ and they put their faith and trust in him, I believe that the Holy Spirit is the one that's enacting that in that person. Why would you look to the Savior? Don't you?
Well, it's the age-old question.
I don't mean
where do you lay
either.
your boundaries at? Because obviously you're going to get you have at some point where you're going to say to somebody that's not Christian, you're not a Christian.
I don't say that to anyone.
So Charles Manson, who believed in the Bible and actually used the Bible, quoted it quite often while there were multiple acid trips, but nonetheless, he's quoting Revelation.
He also said
9.
that he was Jesus Christ.
Sure, why not?
Well, that's not what a believer says, right?
So there is a line then.
What I'm saying is,
at some point you've got a
when
line.
you say I don't say anything, I'm not talking about an insane person that murders people who's obviously has mental health issues because he was raped as a child. His mother was a prostitute. He had all kinds of problems in his life. He did what he did, and he's responsible for what he did, and he died while he was in prison. He paid his price. His wages are paid. So for me to say, I know that he's not Jesus Christ because he didn't save anyone. He killed people. That's pretty simple. Now, I'm talking about rational thinking adults that are truly seeking, and you can see it in their life. You notice it. It becomes obvious. That's what I mean. And so, yeah, we could philosophically divide this and say, there is a line. Of course. Yeah. We could do that all day long.
Right.
Does love have a line?
Write the song, Big
question.
Daddy. Write the song. Does love have a line?
That's a good song.
I don't think there is a line in love. That sounds like Tom Jones a little bit, right?
Can we get like
But I
saxophone?
won't do that.
But I won't do that.
Yeah, there's a line somewhere
There
with
you
love
go.
that I ain't crossing.
There is for
Meatloaf
Meatloaf.
said.
Yeah, Meatloaf had a line. Clearly.
Meatloaf had a line.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Something that I have discovered, about you since I've gotten to know you just a little bit here is that I believe that you're sincere. And I think that's commendable to me. And I think you are sincere. And the reason why I reached out initially is because I wanted to know, why are you guys so mean? And I see where you're coming from, like I really do, but I see meanness on both sides. I see it.
It's really, you have these statements that again have unified 2,000 years of church history, that have unified billions and billions of billions, the greatest scholars, movers, shakers of the world. Western civilization, and all of these Galileo. I mean, I could go down the list. Are all wrong.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's
But
and,
that's-
and you
You're living in a time right now.
and you and a small group of people. Now, this is Joseph Smith. It's exactly what he did. The whole church is apostate, and he went off and started his other church. Fantastic. Start your own other church. Stop trying to hijack ours, because we already have our defined limits. It's like joining the Masons and then you want to change the Masons. No, we're the Masons. This is our boundaries. These are our statements of faith. These are our rules. Start another Mason group or something. But so to go in and try to redefine what the church historically, in all of her creeds,
Do you
every
think that way
statement that's ever
about
been
other
written,
institutions or just the church?
just the church.
Just the church.
But
Okay.
any-
So other institutions it's valid to like attempt to change the belief or system of other institutions, but just not the church.
Not within what you find in definition. For
Okay.
example,
so the church is like, so the church is like somehow sacred though. It is not to be changed. You can either take it or you can leave
we've
it.
been changed, but when you
Oh, so it has changed. So was
Sure,
that,
sure,
was that
definitely.
good necessarily or bad or both?
it's changed within
But-
the boundaries.
Okay, so now we
there's
can't
set
change.
boundaries.
So now we don't change the church. then.
Well, it's changed the family. There's no boundaries. So if you take away all boundaries,
Okay, but that's not what we're
change
talking
the
about.
family. Well, any
we're
institution.
talking about
pick
the
a,
church.
Pick an institution.
So we can't change the church anymore, but we did, and some of that change was good. But we're done with that now.
There's changes that operate within set boundaries, and inside that boundary, there's a whole lot of room
So,
to
like,
do a whole
approved-
lot of things.
Approved change.
You have to have boundaries and definitions. That's the problem going on in epistemology today.
Then you got to get into that who gets to approve the approved change thing.
Yep.
Actually, I asked that question the other day. I was like, how do you change those things? Like how do you open the proverbial books again to say, let's take a look at this particular thing? Like whenever the Westminster Confession of Faith was updated to state that the Pope was no longer the Antichrist, right?
Still within the boundaries
of the Westminster Confession of Faith.
of the whole church, everything. Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, doesn't make any difference.
Well, the Roman Catholic were the Antichrist, so that couldn't be true. That's not within the boundary of the
Some
church.
But that's never stated in the Nicene. The Nicene doesn't touch those issues.
No. Okay. I'm just saying when they opened up the Westminster Confession of Faith and then they updated it, who opened the book? Like who made the decision?
This came about through a large consensus and through the judicial aspects of the Presbyterian churches that were joining together in their synods and presbyteries.
But there has to
So
be
there was a process
one.
that was going on. We don't just say, let's get rid of the First Amendment of the Constitution. Let's just get rid of it.
No, of course not.
You have
no,
to have a process.
There is, yeah, and I was
You gotta
well.
go
See, and
through
I know
this.
how the process
we're
works
well
within our
down that
U.S.
road.
government. I didn't know how it worked
Yeah,
within
but
the body of the church.
Roe v. Wade
Roe v. Wade
become one person created that process. So you ask a good question.
No, it was a coalition of people who
Well,
gave it the name Roe.
You're right.
It was a coalition of people
it
who got
started with
together as
one-
a consensus.
But one person started it. It did become like he's talking about, became a group of people. But it has to start somewhere with one.
Yes.
So he may ask a good question in the same principle. Who is the person that can start it, or who would be the person that started? Now,
Like every time I say who opened the books, like I always think of Revelation.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and then he opened the book and the books were open. And then I'm like, now that there's only one worthy enough to open those books and read
Yes,
that, right? So I
right.
get that. That's the one I serve. But I'm talking about like as the church body, who makes
Yes.
the decision to say, okay, let's open this up and talk about it.
It's a good question.
And I didn't know, like who would
It's
like
a big, giant question.
are there people that signed this, like when the Westminster was updated, were there
51?
signers on that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there was somebody that led that and then somebody that
Well, you have
there
to have
was
people.
judicious. Yeah, of
It's
course.
people that's making these decisions.
Right.
It's people that we set in authorities that are police officers, judges, mayors, lawyers, whatever.
Sure.
And they have these credentials, except in Christianity, you get laughed at if you have credentials.
Yeah.
I've been scorned because I've got a doctorate's degree, and we don't need that. I just need my Bible.
Yeah.
Just read my Bible.
Yep.
And
I hear
your
that a lot.
Bible, the very Bible you got, came through scholars.
Scholarship.
Yeah, it's some
And
incredibly.
in the institutions you abhor, you wouldn't have that. So the irony, I'd say the contradiction, is not to be lost.
I was just watching that.
I make it a
debate.
point.
It's really not irony. It's ignorance.
It's-
It's true ignorance. And I don't mean in an ugly way. It's they just don't realize like how hard it was to get
Yeah.
like the King James Bible. How hard was that? How much time was spent?
Just like
Goodness
people don't
gracious.
follow things out to their conclusion.
like
Oftentimes,
us.
No, I mean like people, our government. people aren't following things back in history and learning things. History is there for us to learn from. You said yourself,
Oh,
a
I love
historian of the
history, yes.
church.
Yep.
You know, we have to learn from history. And, you know, we also have to follow things out to their conclusion before we change an entire society or an entire church or an entire way of thinking. Like, I know when you were going into preterism and when you were coming out of preterism, you didn't just say, okay, today I'm just going to be a preterist.
Oh, yeah,
okay, today
right.
I'm not going to be a
Right, right.
preterist. There was thought. There was, what is the logical conclusion of this? And at some point you went, wait, this conclusion, it doesn't,
It's not
that doesn't come to an
logically
end.
working, right?
So when you came out of it, you had to go back and look at history. And what did you think when you would be here being called all the names that you've been called and treated the way you've been treated by people who called you brother 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? To me, one of the most unattractive things about Christianity, and Andy, I'm going to put this on you here, is the way
The thing that's
It's
just
the way-
unattractive about Christianity is Andy.
it's the way we treat
Andy.
the way we treat one another. When
Is Andy.
even some small belief, the way we treat one another is not attractive to the outside world, especially online. Especially, it's easy to sit behind a computer and bang away at someone and mar their reputation and whatever. But that's not attractive to even Andy, to the world, you know. And I think sometimes that's, and I know there's a point where we've got to stand on what we consider to be truth. Whether I interpret the Bible a different way than he does, and he interprets it differently
right.
than you. I know that we have to stand on that truth, but we do need to do it bathed in love. And I don't see a lot of that, especially on social media, especially online with one another. And I don't do it all the time.
I don't know anyone
in
does it
my
perfectly.
personal life,
Right.
like I don't do it. And it's
I see
It's
love
hurtful
more
to
as
the
an
out-
action. So if Michael Sullivan was in a ditch in a car or something, I'm going to pull over and help him and get him to the hospital and do everything that I can do. That's the action of love. That doesn't mean I got to agree with everything that he
No.
agrees with. So we're going through this even in our own culture.
in our society, we can't
It's
have
all over
any
the place.
disagreement
you don't have
at
to be
all.
a Christian to see the division that's taking place in politics. But history tells me this is nothing new.
Right.
We've seen this before.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
has happened over. In fact, especially 19th century, there were so many spawns of Christianity and visions of God and God telling me to do this. And they'd lead these little movements of a few thousand people and they'd stay for about 30 years. And then they just fragmented and started falling apart because it couldn't sustain itself. I'm saying that's going to happen. That is happening to these full preterist groups. It's a movement. It's there. They have their little way, and then now it's starting to dissipate and fragment, just like many others. The Shakers and Moravian. You could go down the list of groups that were really there, prominent. They're not here anymore.
Yeah.
So, but the Nicene Creed still's here. It's
Yeah.
not going anywhere. So
Right.
there's
So
a
if-
solidity
and
to
with-
that
yeah.
kind of thing. You have movements in America. The Constitution's still here, even if you agree if it's being enacted or not, or being violated or not. Old argument always going on, but it's still here. So there has to be an anchor at some point where you say that's the base, that's the foundation. You let that one go, you can marry your dog now. Anything goes. And nobody wants to say anything goes. I can believe that Jesus was a goat that lived on Mount Boo-Boo-Badoo.
It's funny how many things lead to
I could.
marrying your dog, apparently. Apparently, a lot of things just like go directly
Well, there's actually
to
a
animal
group
love.
of people that do want to do those kinds of things.
Oh, there's literally groups of people that do that, but
Yep.
it's not anything to do with society. Some people just ain't right.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
it. We need
so
that
we're-
on a T-shirt. Some people just ain't right.
Well, it's like the other day, Doug Wilson said, because there are only 14 preterists, 14 full preterists, right? He said he wasn't going to deal with it because there were only 14, and I made a T-shirt that said the 15th preterist because
Larry the 15th
Yes.
apostle is you.
yeah, Ricky
Larry
the 15th
15th.
preterist.
Ricky the
So-
15th preterist.
So, well, my point is that I'll give you a pretty clear indicator of what I'm seeing in my life is I had a plumber come in out of nowhere who goes to a Baptist church. I go to a premillennial Baptist church. You're going to find out there's a lot of people out there that actually ascribe to either partial or full preterists, and they are in churches all over the country.
Now, there's a massive difference between partial and full preterism.
Well, there is,
Massive
but
difference.
even partial preterists are inconsistent.
Yeah, that's
just
been
like
around
full
forever.
preterists are. But so full preterists and partial preterists are all inconsistent. Here's my issue. Dispensationalism is a very new kid on the street,
Absolutely.
but it's considered orthodox.
Uh,
It is accepted and orthodox,
it's in the bounds.
but it is not in the bounds.
Sure it is.
Absolutely not.
What's it contradict? In the Nicene Creed, what's it contradict?
Well, okay, so we're going to hold everything to the Nicene Creed.
That's the boundary.
No, the Bible is
No.
the boundary. The Nicene Creed is not the boundary. The
Yeah.
Bible is.
Where'd you
Sola
get the Bible
Scriptura.
from?
Not the Nicene Creed.
Did it fall out of the sky or something?
It was downloaded into our brains like the Matrix.
Yes.
No, we know where the Bible came from. What I'm saying is that even the creeds say sola scriptura. Even they say that. My point isn't to argue about this point. We can get into that later.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not going to start a land
No,
war.
that's good.
Just like the Bible says in Matthew 5, blessed are the war makers. Oh, it doesn't say that. No, it says peacemakers.
Yes.
So
Is this the same Jesus that told the Pharisees they're sons of hell?
the same Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
but-
wanted to get that straight.
Yeah, I didn't say that Jesus was a love guru.
Now, these are the Pharisees that sold their whole lives to do everything to preserve the nation of the Elohim Avraham, the God of Abraham. Their whole lives are
Yes, they
devoted to the
did.
scriptures.
And
Their whole
Jesus-
lives are devoted to what God said.
and
in
he
the
stood on the
scriptures.
temple
They're-
of their-
and you're sons of hell. So he's actually having that conversation because they don't disagree about the Bible. They never fight about the inerrancy of the Holy Scriptures.
Right.
And or the historicity of
The
Moses.
only
They don't
problem
fight
that they
about
had
that.
is how they interpreted it.
Right.
They knew
And
it
Jesus
wasn't.
drew a line.
And he said,
And he
"You've
said, your
misinterpreted."
interpretation is so bad,
Yes,
even though we agree on so much.
that you will
That
be
makes
destroyed.
you- right.
He's the war maker, not me.
Right.
And so,
Well-
and he brought it to them. And he what? You were about to say something. I'm sorry.
If he's doing that
Yeah,
and we're to imitate him,
he doesn't tell you to go make war.
he doesn't.
He tells you to bring a sword and then you lay it down.
So when Paul says to stand up against those that are,
Paul went to his death.
and he says to remove those from the church,
That's
and that Hymenaeus and Philetus, their faith has shipwrecked. It's like gangrene, which is one of the worst things you can have. These men that were former brothers are like gangrene.
yeah.
So
cut them
that's
off?
pretty serious stuff.
It
Yeah,
is, but that's
excommunication.
not-
Get
yeah.
rid of them.
That's not war. I think I'm not talking about word war. I'm talking about war,
Yeah.
like war.
And there's souls like yourself that are peacemaker.
Yeah.
There's different things for different kinds of things, and I think you balance out as we would balance out folks like yourself who are peacemaking people.
Yeah.
Balance out us who see very clearly the lines.
yeah.
We have to hold the lines.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love those on the other side. Yes, if a Nazi soldier gets shot, I will take him into the medic and get him some help,
Yeah.
even though he's a Nazi soldier. They
Right.
did that.
Uh-huh.
The Christmas truce and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
You're still an enemy. I'll love you,
Yeah.
but get in my line of fire, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah. That's not scriptural.
So it's
you don't shoot people. Where it doesn't say that to do that.
Well, I'm using the analogy.
I understand. No, I understand. He's still my enemy, but we're not going to kill him. That's not our place. Let's get into that later. This is about your testimony. Bing! Welcome to the Burrows. That's how we do it here. We just get off on tangents. Why don't we wrap up your testimony, because you're going to be in the studio all day with us tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
For 27 hours straight.
27.
It's going to be like a Twilight Zone.
you guys all gonna
Time
be
is
here?
gonna
Is this-
fly right by.
I don't know who else.
I got to cut wood tomorrow.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Hey,
I'll
got
be
wood.
here.
Okay.
You'll be here.
You'll be here.
Oh, yeah.
Ricardo will be here. Andy has to be here
I have
because
to
we
be
pay
here.
him.
There is an obligation there.
Well, can I just say that I appreciate you coming in,
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me.
to coming down here, and my wife really liked you. She thought you were cool. I hope that you do bring your wife down,
Yes.
and
I'd like for you to meet her.
I think it would be great. But thanks for being on our show and sharing your testimony, and I look forward to these future talks we're going to have here.
All righty.
Where do you go to church now? What kind of church?
Presbyterian
You're
church.
Presbyterian?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. In Knightstown, Bethel Presbyterian Church in Knightstown.
I didn't mean you to give me the exact name. I meant what kind of church did you
Yep,
choose to
Presbyterian.
land in?
You still in Oklahoma?
Indiana.
Indiana.
Yep.
I said Oklahoma. I was just guessing.
Gotcha.
Just
And
like-
guys, if you guys want to learn about Dr. Sam Frost and some of his work, do you mind naming off a few of your books? Like I know about Why I Left Full Preterism.
Why I left the Parousia
Misplaced
of the
Hope.
Son of Man, and then that book, Daniel Unplugged.
Yeah, Daniel
which is a
Unplugged.
translation and work of commentary
So
on Daniel.
what I'm going to do
I'm
is
studying Daniel now.
he's got books
That's
for
the
you
book.
guys. He's going to send us books back. He's going to sign them for you guys, so I'll get them for you. But what I'm going to do is, and this is a book by Steve Gregg that you gave me for me. So I will put a link on our, on the paragraph there, guys. If you go back and look at it, it'll go to his Amazon. Do you have like another website that you?
Yeah, vigil.blog is where all my little blog, I
Okay.
guess, for what all of that is.
I'll need to get that link from you, and I'll put
Yep.
that in the thing too, so everybody can
Will
go and
do.
look, and then everybody can start yelling at me and screaming at me.
Yeah,
are you
are you
promoting
prepared
his
because you're about to
material?
take it from all
Oh, yeah.
sides.
I don't really care. I want to. I don't.
Rick's
I
going to
want.
get it from
I
all
will say
sides.
there's an.
Oh yeah.
I said this yesterday. We were at the store, and I'm a person. If I don't like a personality or something, I kind of let you know that we're not going to get along. But what was your name again? When I met Rick, there was almost an immediate kind of thing, and then the first indication is that he mentioned Cracker Barrel, so that was the first time I was like, no,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
you.
We're
already.
best friends.
Yeah,
We know
we're
how to
best
eat.
Did
friends.
we just
French
become best
toast.
friends?
Yeah. Are we best friends?
Is that Step Brothers?
Yeah.
You know they
So-
serve alcohol at them now.
Well,
Did you know
some-
that?
What?
They do
They serve alcohol at
at
Cracker Barrel now. You
That's
can
been
get
about
biscuits
a-
and gravy
We're
and a
real big. It's
beer.
been
9
about
in
a
the
year.
morning, you can have a Falstaff and some.
Yeah.
Well,
A full stack of a mimosa.
when
Let's
it comes
go
to
now.
best friends, somebody does play the drums.
Yes,
I can have him set up tomorrow.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So-
yeah.
Just
Sure
don't put your things on them.
Yeah. Step Brothers.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. That was a way to get.
but a genuine, I think there's a good friendship blossoming
Yeah, absolutely.
there. So not afraid to say that.
Yeah, same here. And Billy,
Yo.
you want to ask him the famous question?
Oh yeah. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
What is
So-
your
Oh.
social security number?
Yeah, exactly. So,
That's the
your
magic
routing
question.
number. I still get that on Facebook. I just need your routing number and your.
Pop that right over.
If you'll give it to us, we'll send you $1 million.
so, all right, Dr. Frost, when you're when you die, when your body shuts down, what happens?
My spirit goes to be with the Lord in heaven.
Like right then, right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm in pretty good company there with that question. So
To be absent from
Yeah.
the body is present.
absent with the body, presence. Lord's Jewish. It's a Jewish teaching. Actually.
Anything beyond that?
You guys need to read 1 Corinthians chapter 5 again. That is not what it says.
It is what it says.
It is not what it says.
Okay.
He says he would that
Can
he
we
would
do that
agree.
tomorrow?
prefer.
Let's do it tomorrow.
No, he would prefer. But I have to say, I'll say it on his testimony episode because probably more people will listen to this than all my other stuff. You ready? So I had a discussion with Sarita in regard to my third day Adam. And she talked to me about the Spanish pluperfect tense.
Yeah.
And I am in agreement. I talked with Dr. Frost about this as far
I
as
actually
Hebrew is
contacted a
Greek has
concerned.
a
Hebrew-
blue perfect. Yes.
I contacted a Hebrew scholar because I wanted to
Yep.
know, because it was really bothering me. And I couldn't make it make sense. So I got my Spanish Bible out.
Have had.
Have had.
Yeah.
Yes.
So whenever she mentioned that, we talked for hours about all kinds of things, but she brought that up and I just listened really close and I thought, you know what? You're right. And so, but of course, I'm right too. And here's how I'm right. Are you ready? I beg you for somebody to change my English Bible to read it in the pluperfect way so that I can get the grasp of what the Hebrew actually means. So in other words, whenever you're reading it in English and it says, and the man was lonely, and so God formed the animals and brought him to the man. In that order in English, it sounds like he was lonely, so God made animals and brought him to the man, right? That is not what it means.
Yep. That's what it
Bec-
sounds like
But that's not what it means.
In English, yeah.
in English.
Right. What it actually means with the pluperfect is this. And man was lonely, and the animals that God had made, he
Yep.
brought to the man. That's how it should be said in the English, but
Huh.
that's not how they translated
That's
it.
how it's said in the Spanish.
But they have to
Interesting.
say it that way in order to, because you're translating this language, they have to put it this way in order to stay to the language, right?
Big
These rules
debates
that they
go
have.
on there with what translation is.
Yeah, it's a problem with translation is, are you trying to translate to the letter
Right,
or to the, what is it, the intent to the
The
vibe?
intent, right.
Yeah, the intent or the letter, because they're not the same.
Yeah, we've talked about that like
So
in the
what was
law,
the
right? The
consensus?
spirit of the law
Right.
versus the letter of the law.
What was
Right.
the consensus we came up with in Virginia?
That
English.
English sucks. Yeah,
We need a new translation.
that's what I was saying. Is I was like, hey, don't say that, man. My King James Bible's well. I love the King James Bible more than anybody. I love to quote it.
It's a wonderful translation.
It is. It's an amazing translation, but that's not my point. In that Bible, it still says it in that way, and so I don't get that. And to me, I'm like, Adam was made on day 3. If you read it in the English Bible. Period. No, it's not true. Look at the first chapter. Nope. Actually, what it does is it make you want to question what the image of God is. Now I've got to go do a study on that word. And I pull out my concordance and I'm taking it out of context and I'm reading a single word without all the other words surrounding it. Now I've got all these new meanings.
Yep.
Somebody please translate this Bible in my language so that I can understand what it actually means.
Yeah, but from chapter 2, it's not just that one spot that it's all. If it's wrong, then it's messed up in a lot. In chapter
It's messed
2.
up in several spots, according
sure.
to this Hebrew scholar.
That's
the
what he
Pluperfect
says,
is
like,
all through chapter 2.
It's all through chapter
Ha.
2, which makes you rethink.
Fun.
And it makes me excited because now I want a shirt that says, I know what a pluperfect is.
So I go, oftentimes I'll go home and my poor husband, and I'll say, this is what we talked about tonight. And he'll go, that's not right. And I'll like,
It's
okay,
wrong.
well, prove that to me in the Bible. I was like, in my spirit, I didn't feel that was right, but I was like, I'm gonna do a little more research on that. But because I was a Spanish major, I know about that past tense. That's
Wow.
how that they use that, and they also use it in the future. They also have a pluperfect. Spanish is crazy, so you have both, and so it gets really wacky when you start trying to separate those two out. But he was like, see if you can find a Hebrew scholar online. So that's what I did, and I
No, he's
I
correct.
asked, and because he
Good work,
couldn't
girl.
he couldn't make it make sense either. And I even came back to Rick and said, well, he meant plants and crops versus shrubbery.
Yeah,
But-
you and I talked about that,
But
remember?
no, it's the pluperfect that made,
Right.
because my way didn't make sense
And
either.
you've already read the first part of the story,
Yeah.
so reading as one that reads Hebrew. So yes, it's once you see it's not verbs are not tense. A lot of grammarians want to get away from the whole tense thing with Greek and because it's just we are so tense time based.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So when you see things, the time is at hand.
But one of the funny things, this Hebrew
Western-
Yeah,
stuff,
I'm sure that'll be coming tomorrow because we're going to talk
Western
about
world.
time and time at hand.
But
and
you
time
can have it.
text,
You can
yeah.
even have Adam knew his wife, and they had a son, had a son. So Cain's born before they sinned.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite possible.
well,
Dramatically.
it's funny because the Hebrew scholar said, well, let me preface this by saying there are about 5 different ways to to interpret that. And I thought, even
Yep.
among the Hebrew scholars,
Yep.
there's a difference. He goes, but I'm part of a Hebrew scholastic whatever. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but all right. So anyway, that's sort of, so even they have the way they interpret it is different, and they have different factions, if you will, of the way they
Sure.
interpret it. But he says the majority of Hebrew culture believes the pluperfect.
Yep.
Well, which makes it great. That was a really good moment for us, wasn't it?
We had a good time.
We
That's
did.
cool. Thank you for bringing that back around.
And I'm so glad that she did the work. Like, that was very kind of her to like actually go. She actually sent me an email and I didn't respond, but I didn't know I had it, so she thought I was mad at her.
I was like, did you get mad at me? You didn't
I don't ever
respond
get
to
mad.
my email.
Not like that anyway. I used to get mad at my kids, but anyway. Yeah. But anyway,
I just
thank
learned
you,
if I
Doc.
want to tell him something, I got to text it. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's nice.
Well, thank you, Dr. Frost. I really appreciate you being on the show. And
Thank you.
Yeah, and Billy, Rick, and
You ain't got a joke?
I don't have a joke today. I will have 7 tomorrow. I will bring one. You bring a joke tomorrow. Do you have a joke?
I might have a joke.
Let's hear it.
Okay, let me see if I can remember.
Do you have any dirty jokes?
No. Y'all did that on the last episode.
Yeah,
Excuse me
that
very
was-
much.
That comedic one was like off the chain, dude.
It were.
I got a lot of little messages. Like my favorite my favorite quote. I even sent it. Did you see in this my favorite quote? Let's read it, Andy.
Oh, is that one you texted to me earlier?
Yeah, read it. This
on,
is
hold on,
Andy's
hold on.
quote. We were talking about the Philistines, or about how David it didn't have to bring a dowry because Saul said, "Bring me the foreskins of 100 Philistines,"
Right.
and then so David goes out and kills 200 Philistines and brings 200 foreskins back to him.
I just read that this morning.
Yeah, what did it say, Andy?
So apparently, my quote was, "This sounds about right." So he didn't have a lot of money, but what he did have was the ability to commit mass murder and mutilate a lot of dead bodies.
And I put it out as a quote, and it said Andy Bishop. That's your first. I got you a quote in my
That's
book.
perfect.
It'll be in the book.
I stand behind it.
Anyway, well, thank you guys for listening. We are going to have a lot more Sam Frost on the show in the coming weeks. They're not going to be on every Thursday. I'm probably going to start releasing these maybe on like wacky Wednesdays. We have Teasy on a Tuesday. Then I'll probably, these will be special episodes that will not be part of our normal Thursday episodes. Frosty Fridays.
There you go. That's cool.
What do you think? Frosty Fridays?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that
works.
sounds good. We'll put them out on Fridays then. Thanks to
Way
you.
to go,
Frosty
Billy.
Friday.
Great.
About time you
Me.
show up.
Because yeah,
The face of radio.
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
because Frosty is ice cold, son. If you don't believe me, read his
yeah.
Facebook. He is ice cold. Anyway, thanks everybody, and we will talk to you guys again next time on the Burrows of Berea. Peace out.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Rick from the Burrows of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burrows of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys.